Welcome everyone to What's Hot in the Bookstore. This is where we, really pull back the curtain on those big titles grabbing everyone's attention. We want to help you figure out if they truly deserve a spot on your reading
Yeah,
list.
your essential reading list.
Exactly.
Okay.
And today, oh boy, we are diving into a book that's been more than just a bestseller. It feels like it's fundamentally shifted how millions think about, well, everything. Money, career, even happiness.
We're talking about The Psychology of Money, Timeless Lessons on Wealth, Greed, and Happiness by Morgan Housel. A genuine phenomenon.
It really is.
And what makes this one so remarkable, I think, is how it just crossed boundaries. You don't just find it tucked away in the finance section.
No, it's right there in self-help too.
Exactly.
Right.
Because the core idea is just so deeply behavioral. It's not treating money like physics, like input A always gives you output B.
Right, not just formulas and charts.
No. It treats finance much more like psychology. And history, too. It's all about us, our human behavior, the quirks, the biases. Those are the things, Housel argues, that really drive long-term financial success, often much more than, say, picking the absolute perfect stock.
And we don't even need to guess about whether that approach landed. I mean, the numbers, the metrics we've got here, they really shout it from the rooftops. This isn't some niche theory.
Oh, absolutely not.
It's widely accepted now, almost like foundational reading if you're serious about your future.
It really feels that way. The social proof alone is just, well, staggering. Look at the customer reviews. We're talking, what, over 65,000 reviews?
65,000, that's huge.
And averaging 4.7 out of 5 stars. I mean,
Yeah.
think about that. In a field like finance books, which can be dense, complex, sometimes controversial.
Yeah, people have strong opinions.
Right. Those numbers aren't just saying good book. They're saying it's incredibly readable, it connects, and people are getting real, actionable value out of it. Immediately, it resonates.
That's a massive endorsement from readers themselves, isn't it? And then there's the bestseller rank. That tells maybe an even bigger story about its influence.
It does. Okay, so overall, it's ranking number 24 in books. That's top 100 across everything. Fiction, nonfiction, cookbooks, you name it.
Wow, okay, so it broke out of its category.
Big time. But then look within the categories. This is where you see how Housel has sort of redefined the conversation. Number one bestseller in budgeting and money management.
Okay, the core practical stuff.
Yep. But also, and this is crucial, number one in introduction to investing. Think about that. People starting their journey, maybe even sophisticated investors reviewing the basics, they're choosing this mindset book first, before the how-to guides.
That says a lot. Mindset before mechanics.
Precisely. And then it's also number 3 in success, self-help, that broad category. It just confirms the book's scope. It's not just about managing dollars and cents.
No, it's bigger.
It's more like a foundational guide for building a life that's stable, successful, and frankly, less anxious.
That intersection, finance, psychology, self-help, that's exactly why we wanted to tackle this today. So our mission here is to unpack these core arguments, get a sense of who Morgan Housel actually is, and really nail down who this book is perfect for.
And maybe who it isn't for.
Good point. By the end of our chat, you should have a really clear idea if the psychology of money is, the right next investment for your time, for your thinking.
All right. Let's get into the author first. Who is this guy?
Okay, let's do that. Before we really dig into these pretty groundbreaking ideas about how we handle money, we need to understand the person behind them. Who is Morgan Housel? Why should we be listening to his take?
Right. Well, Morgan Housel is, he's a really well-recognized name, particularly in this field called behavioral finance.
Behavioral finance, okay.
And that's not just some fancy label. It's really the heart of where he's coming from. He's not just looking at spreadsheets and company reports. He's studying that messy, fascinating intersection of finance, human psychology, and, crucially, history.
So understanding why we do what we do with money, based on our biases, our emotions.
Exactly. Things like fear, greed, overconfidence, and also how the times we live through, experiencing a major recession versus a long bull market, how that shapes our decisions, often in ways we don't even realize, ways that might even go against our own rational best interests.
That makes sense. Using history and, well, how our brains are wired to explain those classic investing mistakes rather than just saying, oh, you did the math wrong.
Precisely. It's a much deeper level of analysis.
But where did he build up this authority? How did he get the platform to share these ideas so widely?
Well, his background is really key to his credibility and his sort of accessible style. For a long time, he was a columnist, highly respected, wrote for the Wall Street Journal and the Motley Fool.
Okay, big names, reaching a lot of people.
Huge reach. And that experience, years of it, forced him to translate really complex market stuff, the jargon, the intricacies, into clear, compelling stories. Stories that regular people, not just finance pros, could understand and relate to. He gets both the retail investor and the bigger picture.
Ah, okay. That explains the clarity in the book. You can feel that background.
Yeah.
He's definitely moved from just being a journalist to more of
Mhm.
a thought leader,
Right.
right? Especially with what he does now.
Absolutely. His current role really seals that. He's a partner at the Collaborative
A
Fund.
collaborative fund. And what's their focus?
Their whole philosophy is built around long-term thinking, patience, financial independence as a goal. It's basically the practical application of everything he writes about in the book. It's not about chasing quick profits or timing the market perfectly.
It's about sustainability,
Yeah,
endurance.
exactly. Building something that lasts, having that generational perspective almost.
And his message clearly resonates beyond just the U.S. market, which underlines that universality you mentioned.
It really does. I mean, the fact that it's a multi-million copy bestseller, translated all over the globe, that tells you something fundamental about human nature and money. These insights aren't culture-bound.
Yeah.
Plus, he's won awards like the Best in Business Award, recognition from his peers about the quality and the impact of his writing. So yeah, he brings a lot of weight, a lot of credibility to these behavioral topics.
Okay, that sets the stage nicely. Now let's pivot to that defining thesis.
Yeah.
Because we really need to be super clear, like you said, about what this book isn't. That focus shift can catch people off guard, especially if they're used to traditional finance books.
This is probably the most critical piece of expectation setting. This book is absolutely, explicitly not your typical strategy guide.
Right. No top 10 stocks for next year.
Definitely not. If you're opening it hoping for detailed charts, complex formulas, or advice like allocate exactly X% to bonds right now, you're going to be looking in the wrong place. Housel deliberately strips out most of the technical stuff.
So no deep dives on tax loopholes or optimal portfolio construction for 2024.
Nope. Very little on that. He minimizes it. He's not interested in giving you fleeting tactical advice.
Okay, so if he's not focusing on those traditional mechanics, the how-to of finance, what is the absolute core focus?
It's overwhelmingly, almost entirely, about behavior over mechanics. That's the mantra.
Behavior over mechanics.
He digs into how your personal history, like, did you grow up seeing your parents stress about money, or did you enter the workforce during a boom?
Yeah.
How that deeply wires your risk tolerance today.
Right. Your own lived experience.
Exactly. He talks about feelings, emotions, how they hijack our decisions. And maybe one of the most powerful parts, he spends real time on the huge role of chance and luck.
Yeah, yes. That's often swept under the rug in success stories, isn't it?
Massively underestimated. Traditional finance loves narratives about pure skill and genius. Housel forces you to confront how much randomness, good or bad timing, sheer luck, actually shapes outcomes.
That's such a crucial psychological point. We love attributing success purely to skill, ignoring the lucky breaks or the favorable environment someone might have had. It leads to overconfidence or unfair blame.
Totally. And this behavioral lens, this focus on the human element, is exactly what gives the book its incredible, almost timeless quality. Think about it.
Yeah.
A book detailing the best tax strategies for this year. It's probably out of date next year or the year after.
True. Laws change constantly.
Like human psychology, greed, fear, impatience. Those are pretty much permanent fixtures. They don't change much decade to decade or even century to century.
So the insights have longevity.
Huge longevity. They work across different market cycles, different interest rate environments, even different cultures, because the underlying human reactions to things like market bubbles or crashes are universal. That's why the book feels relevant whether you read it in 2020 or 2040. It's about building a financial mindset that can handle life with all its chaos, not just the next market prediction.
That idea of endurance, handling life's chaos, is so key. And looking at how the book is actually put together, the structure seems designed to deliver these behavioral insights really effectively. It feels built to, make them stick.
Oh, absolutely. The organization is one of its biggest strengths, I think. It's broken down into 20 short chapters, 20 little power-packed nuggets.
Me essays, almost.
Exactly. They function like really well-crafted mini-essays. Each one zooms in on just one or maybe two core concepts. Things like, how we define enough money, or the surprising power of being a bit pessimistic in your planning.
And that structure makes it very readable, doesn't it? You can pick it up, read a chapter, and really mull over a single big idea.
Totally. And the writing style reinforces that. It's just so clear. Very accessible. And importantly, it's incredibly story-driven.
Yes, he uses a lot of anecdotes.
He's brilliant at it. He'll use these fascinating historical stories or maybe short biographies of people, sometimes famous, sometimes unknown, or big events like the Great Depression, to illustrate these huge financial ideas. It makes the concepts less abstract. They stick in your mind because they're attached to a narrative.
It feels less like reading a textbook and more like listening to someone share wisdom through really good examples, not just rules spat out from a spreadsheet.
That's it, exactly. That narrative glue makes it memorable. He doesn't just state a principle, he wraps a compelling story around it. Should we maybe dive into a couple of the real cornerstone concepts, the ones that people talk about most?
Yeah, let's do that. Where should we start? Maybe the rich versus wealthy idea? That one seems fundamental.
Perfect starting point. It's probably one of the most quoted parts of the book, and for good reason. This distinction he makes between being rich and being wealthy.
Okay, and this immediately flags up that difference between, say, looking successful and actually being
Yeah.
secure, right? I think people mix these up constantly. So how does Housel define rich?
So, being rich in Housel's framework is primarily defined by what's visible, what other people can see.
The external stuff.
Exactly. It's the big house, maybe heavily mortgaged, the fancy car, perhaps leased, the designer clothes, the expensive watches. It's money spent, often conspicuously, on status symbols. Being rich is often a performance.
A performance for others.
Right. It requires spending money for that external validation, that comparison. Housel puts it brilliantly. Being rich is like looking at someone's current income. High income, maybe high spending to match. It often hides significant debt or lack of real assets.
Okay, so the rich person status is obvious, but potentially fragile. It might depend entirely on that high income continuing and restricts their future choices because the money's already spent or committed. What about wealthy then? How is that different?
Wealthy, on the other hand, is defined by what is precisely not visible. It's the money you didn't spend.
The invisible stuff.
Exactly. Wealth is in the savings account that nobody sees. It's in the investments that are quietly compounding. It's the financial independence that doesn't require a flashy display. It's having assets that generate future options. Critically, it's about building what Housel calls an operating room, or more simply, a buffer.
A buffer, like a safety cushion.
Yes. Unspent money that gives you flexibility. Optionality. It's the buffer that lets you stay calm, make rational decisions when the market tanks or you face an unexpected job loss or medical bill. Wealth is resilience.
So the core difference is the rich person might be trapped on a treadmill, needing high income to fund high consumption.
While the wealthy person has that quiet power of choice, freedom, optionality.
That's the real goal.
That's the deep insight Housel pushes. He's basically pleading with the reader. Get off that hamster wheel of comparing yourself to others. Define what success and security mean to you personally. Prioritize that quiet stability, that freedom of time that wealth provides, over the pressure to look rich.
He uses that story of the janitor, Ronald Reed.
Oh yeah, it's a classic Housel example. This Vermont janitor, gas station attendant, lived incredibly frugally. Nobody knew he was wealthy. But over decades of steady saving and letting his investments compound, he quietly built an $8 million fortune.
$8 million. Wow.
Left most of it to his local library and hospital. Meanwhile, Housel contrasts this with stories of high-flying executives or professionals who earned huge salaries, lived the rich lifestyle, but died with massive debts.
So the lesson is stark.
It hammers home the point. It's not about how much you earn or how smart you are. It's your behavior, your discipline, your humility. That's what truly builds wealth over time.
That focus shifts everything from just chasing a bigger paycheck to cultivating better habits.
Yeah.
Which actually leads perfectly into the second big idea we should touch on, compounding. We all kind of know the term.
Right, the magic of compound interest.
Yeah, but Housel approaches it differently, doesn't he? This is where you said it gets really interesting.
It really does.
Yeah.
Because most finance books treat compounding as, a mathematical formula. Principal X, 1 plus rate, time, done.
Plug in the numbers.
Exactly. Housel looks at it and says, sure, the math is powerful, but the real power, the real challenge isn't the math. It's the psychology and the behavior required to actually let the math work over very long periods.
Ah, so it's not just about understanding the formula. It's about having the discipline to stick with it.
Precisely. He reframes compounding as a discipline. He argues the most important lesson from compounding isn't the exponential growth curve itself, but the fact that the truly spectacular results only come after immense amounts of waiting. Time is the magic ingredient, but human nature hates waiting.
You mentioned endurance earlier. How does he break down that behavioral side? What does it take psychologically to achieve real compounding?
He highlights several key traits, none of which are mathematical. First, like you said, endurance. This is the mental toughness to sit through market crashes, and there will be crashes without panicking and selling everything at the bottom.
Resisting that fight or flight urge.
Exactly. Second, you need continuity. This means sticking with the plan. Keep investing regularly, even when it feels scary or boring. Resist the urge to constantly tinker or pull money out for impulse buys or chase the latest hot investment fad. You have to just keep showing up.
Consistency.
Consistency is huge. And third, related to endurance, is patience. Just letting time do its work. Housel loves pointing out that the vast majority of Warren Buffett's fortune was earned after he qualified for Social Security, after his 50th, even 60th birthday.
Wow. Decades of just letting it grow.
Decades. So the biggest returns from compounding often don't come from finding some secret high return investment, because chasing high returns usually means taking on huge risks that can wipe you out.
Right, interrupting the process.
Exactly. The real benefit comes from finding a reasonable return you can stick with consistently, patiently, without interruption for the longest possible time. That duration is the multiplier.
I can really see why he calls it a discipline now. It sounds simple, just wait. But it's psychologically hard. If your behavior makes you sell in a panic or you get restless and jump between strategies,
The chain.
you break the chain of compounding. Doesn't matter how great your initial plan was.
Nope. It's a powerful lesson in humility, really. Realizing that time specifically, long stretches of uninterrupted time, is probably your single greatest financial asset. And your behavior needs to protect that asset, allow it to work its magic. Financial success, Housel suggests, is often less about brilliance and more about just surviving, staying in the game long enough for compounding to pay off.
That idea of survival, staying in the game, leads perfectly into managing risk, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And building those buffers you mentioned, that seems woven through the whole book. If compounding needs time, then managing risk is how you ensure you get that time.
That's a fantastic connection. Yes, the theme of planning for a buffer, deliberately setting aside resources not for maximum growth, but for resilience and actively accounting for risk, is absolutely fundamental to Housel's whole philosophy.
It's not just about potential upside. It's about protecting the downside.
Exactly. He consistently argues that the truly optimal financial decision often isn't the one with the highest potential spreadsheet return. It's the one that gives you the highest odds of survival. Surviving unexpected events, surviving market downturns, surviving your own mistakes.
That buffer sounds like more than just cash in the bank. It sounds like emotional insurance, too.
It absolutely is. It's about buying peace of mind. That's a recurring idea. The book keeps pushing this very practical, almost philosophical question. How much do you need to prepare for the things you don't see coming?
The unknowns. The black swan events, as some call them.
Right, those rare, unpredictable events that can be totally devastating if you're unprepared. Housel encourages us to step back from trying to squeeze every last drop of return out of every single dollar. Instead, maybe optimize for flexibility, for resilience. That buffer, that unallocated capital, is the price you pay so you're never forced to sell your investments at the worst possible time out of desperation.
That feels like it goes way beyond just standard advice like, have a 6-month emergency fund. It's more about a mindset of anticipating imperfection.
It really is. It's about acknowledging that plans rarely go exactly as well planned. Markets are chaotic, life throws curveballs. The mental calculation he wants you to make is, how much room for error do I need? How much should I expect things to go slightly wrong?
Because if your entire plan relies on everything going perfectly,
You're brittle. You're fragile. You're setting yourself up for a painful shock eventually. He explicitly says the purpose of having that buffer, that margin of safety, is so you can sleep at night.
sleep at night. That's a powerful metric.
Isn't it? That ability to stay calm, to avoid panic during volatility, that emotional stability is arguably worth far more than the extra tiny percentage point of return you might have gotten by being 100% invested right up to the eyeballs.
It's fascinating how a book that, as we said, deliberately avoids complex formulas end up being so incredibly practical for making real-life decisions. It's not giving you the what, but the how and the why.
Exactly. It doesn't tell you which stock to buy, but it coaches you on the inner mindset you need to hold any investment strategy through thick and thin.
Which makes it super valuable for people who maybe already know the basics of investing.
Oh, definitely. It's especially powerful for them, I think. People who understand diversification, asset allocation, all that. But they look back and realize they keep making the same mistakes.
Driven by emotion.
Right. They sell low out of fear, buy high out of FOMO, fear of missing out, get envious of their neighbors' crypto gains, and make rash decisions. The book doesn't offer a new mechanical fix for their portfolio. It offers a way to fix their emotional reactions to what their portfolio does.
It addresses that gap, why smart, educated people can still make terrible money decisions.
That's the sweet spot. And his ideas all circle back to these really deep questions of self-reflection, questions you need to answer before you even think about market returns. Probably the biggest one is defining enough.
Enough. That's a tough one for a lot of people.
It is. Society constantly pushes more. Housel forces you to confront that. What does enough look like for you? Financially, materially. He argues you have to define that limit, otherwise ambition and greed will inevitably lead you to take risks that jeopardize the security you've already built. He uses sobering examples of incredibly successful people who lost everything because they just couldn't stop reaching for more. They never defined their enough.
So it's about setting goalposts that aren't constantly moving.
Yes. And critically, tied to that is the question, how much do you value freedom and control over your time? Is your goal just the biggest possible number in your account? Or is it using money to buy autonomy? The freedom to choose your work, your hours, your location.
The freedom to say no.
The freedom to say no. For most people, when they really reflect on it, Housel suggests that control over their time emerges as the single greatest benefit wealth can provide. Far more valuable than just a bigger net worth figure on a statement.
So the ultimate goal isn't just piling up cash. It's using cash to buy freedom. Freedom from worry. Freedom from obligations you don't want.
That's the profound shift. That freedom bought with your savings, secured by your buffer, and guided by your definition of enough, that's what enables the behavioral discipline we talked about for compounding. If you're constantly stressed, needing higher returns just to cover your lifestyle.
You're forced into taking bigger risks.
Exactly. You become fragile again. You're more likely to make mistakes, to interrupt that compounding. The book shows you how to break that cycle by aligning your financial choices with your deeper values and your emotional well-being, not just chasing abstract market benchmarks.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. The author's background in behavioral finance, this powerful focus on psychology over mechanics, the huge difference between being rich and truly wealthy, the behavioral side of compounding, the critical role of buffers and risk. What does this all boil down to for someone listening right now? We know the book's a massive hit, uniquely focused. Who is the absolute ideal reader for the psychology of money? And maybe just as importantly, who might want to look elsewhere?
Great questions. Let's try to summarize that target audience. I'd say this book is almost perfect for anyone who's had that dawning realization, that aha moment, where they recognize their struggles with money aren't really about math skills.
It's something deeper.
Yeah. It stems from those emotional traps or social pressures. Comparing yourself constantly to others online or next door, panicking and selling when headlines get scary, maybe just spending too much trying to signal success. If you feel that psychological friction is undermining your finances, this book speaks directly to you.
It sounds like it could hit home for someone just starting out and someone who's been managing money for years.
I think it genuinely serves both ends of the spectrum, but maybe in slightly different ways. For a beginner, someone just forming their attitudes about money and investing, it's incredibly valuable. It gives you this foundational mindset before bad habits take root. Think of it like a psychological vaccine against common money mistakes.
Setting the right course from the start.
Exactly. But maybe where it has the deepest impact is on people who are already experienced, maybe even high net worth individuals. They know the mechanics, they understand the markets, but they keep bumping up against their own behavioral limitations. They realize knowledge isn't enough without the right emotional temperament.
The knowing-doing gap.
Precisely. If you're someone who enjoys reflection, who appreciates insights drawn from history and human stories, more than you need rigid, step-by-step instructions, this book is definitely for you. You're looking for mental models, ways of thinking, not just a checklist.
Okay. But for the sake of being balanced, we have to talk about the limitations too, right? Who might pick this up and feel like it missed the mark for them? Particularly maybe some of our listeners who lean more towards the technical side.
Absolutely. Managing expectations is key here. Let's be really clear. If you are searching for a practical step-by-step guide on, say, how to set up a tax-efficient retirement portfolio for this specific year,
Or the best way to analyze stock fundamentals.
or complex options strategies or detailed asset allocation models based on current market conditions, you will almost certainly be disappointed. The book, by design, avoids that level of granularity.
It's philosophical, not operational.
That's a great way to put it. It offers powerful frameworks for thinking about financial decisions, for managing your own behavior. But it does not provide specific operational plans or tactical investment advice. It's a guide to wisdom, not a how-to manual for getting rich quick.
It's a crucial distinction.
Yeah.
What about the structure? We mentioned the 20 mini-essays. Is that a potential drawback for some?
It could be, depending on reading preference. It's definitely a feature, not a bug, but some might see it as a limitation because each chapter largely stands on its own as a powerful insight.
Right.
The overall structure feels more like assembling a mosaic from many high-quality pieces rather than reading a single, continuously unfolding story or argument that builds chapter by chapter.
So less like a novel, more like a collection of profound essays on a theme.
Exactly. If you strongly prefer a book with a single narrative thread that carries you from beginning to end, the slightly episodic nature might feel a tiny bit fragmented. It requires you to connect the dots between the chapters yourself to some extent.
Okay, fair point. And lastly, that geographical context.
Yeah.
Does that limit its applicability?
It's worth noting, while the core psychological principles are absolutely universal, greed is greed everywhere, fear is fear everywhere. Some of the specific stories and historical examples Housel uses.
Market crashes, economic trends.
Right. They naturally draw quite heavily on U.S. history and the American financial landscape. That doesn't make the underlying point less valid, of course. But a reader in, say, Germany or Japan or Brazil might need to do a small mental translation. They might need to think, okay, how does this principle about reacting to bubbles apply to my country's market history or my cultural context?
So the core wisdom travels perfectly. But some specific examples might require a slight adaptation by the reader.
Yeah, just a little bit of intellectual transfer might be needed for non-U.S. readers to fully connect with every single anecdote, but the fundamental lessons remain powerful regardless of geography.
Right, so wrapping this all up, we've explored Morgan Housel's background, the book's intense focus on behavior and psychology, that crucial rich versus wealthy distinction, the real meaning of compounding, the importance of buffers and risk management. Considering all that, what's the final verdict? The big takeaway for someone wondering if they should pick this book up?
Well, look, I think the final recommendation has to be overwhelmingly positive. I'd classify The Psychology of Money as genuinely essential reading. It does something few finance books manage. It offers insights that feel both profound and immediately relevant to your actual life.
It's not just theory.
No, it really prompts you to fundamentally rethink your relationship with money, to maybe reprioritize what you're actually aiming for. Putting things like personal values, emotional stability, control over your time, maybe ahead of just maximizing raw returns.
So it leads to clarity.
Yeah.
And maybe calmness.
Exactly. Clarity on your own goals, not someone else's. And yes, a huge part of its value is fostering a sense of calm when dealing with the inevitable uncertainty and volatility of markets and life in general. It encourages you to tune out the noise, the comparisons, and align your financial life with what truly matters to you.
It sounds less like a finance book and more like, I don't know, a manual for financial peace of mind, which is maybe a more valuable goal for many people.
I think that's spot on. And because it tackles these fundamental human truths, these deep psychological patterns, it's not a read once and done kind of book.
So it have reread value.
Definitely. Your own circumstances change, you get older, you experience different market cycles. You'll likely find that different chapters or ideas resonate more strongly or reveal new layers of meaning each time you revisit it, maybe every few years. It really is about learning how to manage money and yourself for life, not just for the next market forecast.
That's a strong endorsement for its long-term value. Okay, so for everyone listening who's now thinking, yes, I need this perspective, let's just quickly recap the practical details. The book is The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, published back on September 8th, 2020. And the print length is about 256 pages.
Yep, concise enough to be approachable and rereadable, but packed with insight.
Definitely sounds like it.
And maybe, as people consider grabbing a copy, I can leave them with one final thought to chew on, something that really captures Housel's core message.
Please do. A provocative thought is always good.
Okay, try this. Really think deeply about what true financial independence would actually look like and feel like for you. If you stripped away every single external status symbol, no fancy car, no giant house signaling your success, if nobody else had any clue how much money you had, how would that wealth, that independence, tangibly change your day-to-day choices, your feelings, your freedom?
Wow. That forces you to separate the money from the ego, doesn't it?
Completely. It gets to the heart of what money's real purpose might be. That quiet, internal freedom Housel encourages us all to find.
That is a powerful question indeed. It really reframes the whole point of saving and investing, moving it away from external validation towards internal peace. Well, if that sounds like the kind of wisdom and perspective you've been looking for, the link to purchase this worldwide bestseller, The Psychology of Money, can be found right there in the video description below.
Highly recommend picking it up.
We definitely encourage you to grab this potentially life-changing title. It really could reshape how you think about your financial future.